In 1932, Australia went to war. The enemy was a bird, and the bird won. But here's what nobody tells you about the Great Emu War. The emus weren't invading. They weren't attacking. They weren't doing anything they hadn't done for 80 million years before a single fence post was ever driven into Australian soil. This is their side of the story. They had been walking this continent since before it was worth naming, long before there were fences or wheat fields or governments deciding what belonged where. The emu had already mapped every dry creek bed, every rain shadow, every red dust plain from coast to range. They knew this land the way only something ancient can know it, not as a place to visit, but as a place they simply were. And then, in 1932, 3 men with machine guns decided that was a problem. The emu is not, by any reasonable measure, a subtle creature. Standing nearly 2 meters tall, weighing as much as a grown man, with a neck the colour of a bruised sky, and eyes that seem permanently unimpressed. They are not built for hiding. They are built for endurance. Their legs are the most powerful propulsion system in the Australian animal kingdom, capable of carrying them at nearly 50 kilometres an hour across terrain that would destroy a truck tyre. They are the only bird on Earth with a dedicated calf muscle. Their Latin genus name, Dromaeus, comes from the Greek word for racer. They did not earn that name by accident. They can go weeks without eating. They can detect rain from hundreds of kilometres away. Researchers believe they hear distant thunder at frequencies the human ear cannot reach, and they move toward it, trusting something older than memory. They walk up to 25 kilometres a day at a casual pace. Their feathers are double-shafted, layered against both heat and cold. They have been refined by this continent across geological time into something very close to perfect for the job of surviving Australia. In 1932, roughly 20,000 of them followed the rain inland, exactly as they always had, exactly as their ancestors had, for longer than human history. The cleared farmland of Western Australia's Campion district was, to an emu, simply the next stop on a route they had been running since before anyone drew a map. There was water, there was food. They stopped. The farmers called it an invasion. The emus called it Tuesday. Stories like this, the ones that reframe everything, are what true blue education is built for. Subscribe if that's your kind of history. When the soldiers arrived on the 2nd of November, 1932, armed with 2 Lewis light machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, the emus did something that military ornithologist Dominic Saventi would later describe, with great admiration and some frustration, as guerrilla tactics. They did not stand in formation. They did not mass into a killable shape. When the first shots cracked across the flat Western Australian scrub, 20,000 birds simply dispersed, not in panic, in the efficient, unhurried way of something that has been navigating threats since the Cretaceous. Small groups peeled off in separate directions, crossing broken ground at speed, and the machine guns, designed for enemy soldiers advancing in rows, had nothing to aim at. At a dam ambush on the 4th of November, over 1,000 emus moved toward water. The soldiers held fire, waited for the perfect shot, and one of the Lewis guns jammed. The flock was gone in under a minute. Farmers tried herding them with trucks. One truck crashed. The emus, uninjured, continued at 90 kilometres an hour across terrain that had been unfamiliar to the truck driver and entirely familiar to the bird. Major Meredith, the commanding officer, was a soldier honest enough to admit what he was seeing. The emus, he said, could face machine guns with the invulnerability of tanks. He said that if he had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of an emu, it would face any army in the world. He meant it as praise. He was right. Did Australia lose the Emu War? After 38 days of operation, with fewer than 1,000 confirmed kills from nearly 10,000 rounds fired, the military withdrew. Parliament debated it. The press mocked it. The Minister of Defence, who the press had taken to calling the Minister for the Emu War, quietly ended the campaign. How many people died in the Emu War? None. The emus saw to that too. The flock moved on when the season changed. Not because they were driven off. Not because the soldiers succeeded, but because the rain had moved and they followed it, as they always had, as they always would. 20,000 birds walking back into the Australian interior. They're still out there, between 600,000 and 700,000 of them, across every corner of this continent, on Australia's coat of arms, on the currency, in the dreamtime stories of people who understood long before anyone else what this animal actually is. True blue education exists to give history its proper telling. If you want more of it, you know what to do. The emus never knew a war had been declared. They just kept walking.